Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And yes, you are back on the action cam today because I'm doing something I've never done before. And I figured I would try to take you guys along for the journey, at least the best that I could. So it is now 1:30. I need to be out the door in just a couple minutes because at 1:55 today, I am going to see the re-release of Alien for its 45th anniversary. I have never seen this on the big screen before, so I am super excited about this. More so, I've never seen any old movies at the theater. And so today, I'm doing that for the very first time, and I cannot wait. So I want to take you guys along, again, as best I can. Obviously, I can't film in the theater, but I want to share with you my kind of instant reactions after I go see this, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, one of the best movies ever made, period, in the theater for the very first time. The last time I saw this was on the 4K release, and I'm very interested to see how it looks compared to the 4K release. What I've noticed in my recent theater trips is that I almost prefer the look of 4K at home than I do of the actual look of the movies at the theater. Now, that could be, just because I'm used to it more at home or whatever the case is, but I find in the theater some of the darks just get lost. And so I'm very curious how this one is going to look. Now, mind you, I have no idea. My thought is they're probably just doing a digital version of this. I don't imagine this is going to be on film or anything like that, but hey, I don't know. That's okay. Either way, I'm just curious how it's going to look on the big screen. So with all of that said, guys, I need to get out the door. So let's not waste any more time at all. Come with me as I go watch Alien in theaters for the first time for its 45th anniversary re-release. All right, so I am just out of the theater. Excuse my glasses. I'm outside, or I was just outside, so I'm in my truck now. But I'm actually going to head into, behind me, there's a disc replay, so I'm going to head over there. But that was awesome. Like, I cannot recommend it enough. I'm hoping this video will go live on Tuesday. So if you're interested in seeing this, like, you still have an opportunity to. The scope, the size, I was able to appreciate it all so much more in the theater. The thing I noticed most on this viewing that I haven't in the past is just the scale of this whole thing. So right at the beginning of this, before the movie actually starts, there is maybe 5 to 7 minute interview between Fede Alvarez, who is directing the new Alien Romulus, and Ridley Scott, of course, the director of Alien. And they talk about one of the ways they, helped with scope was when the crew first arrives at the alien spacecraft at the beginning of the film, he actually used his children in the beginning of that in order he filmed his kids. And so you see the ship in the background looks twice as big as it would otherwise. Of course, it's all, a scale model. That's just so intelligent. And that scope is so prevalent when you see it on such a big screen. He also talks about the inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which now that I've seen that movie, which I talked about recently, I absolutely can see that in there. Towards the end of the movie, there is an explosive moment, right? And obviously, you've probably seen the movie, but if you haven't, I'm not going to spoil it. But there's an explosive moment at the end, and the colors and the way that's filmed was very reminiscent of 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a moment in the beginning of the film, I think it's right before the crew even wakes up, or maybe it's right after they wake up, but there's like a beeping sound that I thought that's like right from 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I really felt that influence on it this time, which of course, having not seen 2001 until recently, I never would have picked that up, but it's very evident. And the fact that Ridley Scott talked about it before the film kind of, just had that in my mind. And so I was able to see those influence in it. The whole ship itself was very, reminiscent of 2001 also. So I never realized that connection until this time through. So that was really cool to see. What's also interesting is this is the first time I watched Aliens just a few weeks ago, whatever it was, probably a month ago now. But whenever it came out on 4K, which I still think, regardless of what anyone says, I still think that 4K of Aliens looks phenomenal. But watching Aliens and then going back to Alien, I've never watched it in that order. It's always, in the correct order. It is so interesting how, I don't want to use the word slow because that has negative connotations, but how deliberate Ridley Scott is with Alien versus, what we get in Aliens. They are just such drastically different movies. They could be out of two different franchises, and that is just fascinating to me. This is very much a man in the house scary movie, more of a haunted house movie than anything else, whereas Aliens is definitely action horror, feels more sci-fi even than Alien does. Alien is so grounded in this reality, which is crazy to say given the situation, but it feels more realistic than what we get with Aliens, which does feel a little bit more sci-fi. This is it's an absolute masterpiece. Ridley Scott nails this movie. The script by Dan O'Bannon is so well done. And then of course, just the set design, the character designs of the alien itself by Geiger's artwork is just amazing. And seeing it in such a large format was so immersive, and it felt really special. So if you have a chance and you love this movie, I cannot recommend it enough. It felt like in the viewing that there may have been a couple of people who were watching the movie for the first time, and that's awesome. To see that for the first time in theater would just be an amazing experience. But for me, I absolutely cannot recommend enough to go see your favorite movies in the theater if you're given the opportunity. I know next weekend is May the 4th, and one of my local theaters is doing a Star Wars marathon. I'm about to text my buddy to see, hey, is there any chance you'd be interested in going to sit in the theater with me for 20 plus hours to watch the Star Wars movies? I don't know if I'd be able to get away with it with the family, but man, I really want to try now, because seeing that, it just felt like watching it for the first time again. The one thing that I can't duplicate at home that I get in the theater is the sound. This was booming, and it just really added to the whole atmosphere of the film. There are moments where it's almost overwhelmingly loud, but it's intentional that way. And you don't really get that when you're watching it at home. At least I don't. Obviously your setup could be significantly better than mine, but that's something that I really appreciated through on this time viewing it in the theater, was just the booming sound. The score for this film is absolutely incredible. I love it when they are going up to the creature who they find at the beginning of the movie, the skeleton of that creature. They're going up to him, and there's just this music. The score is just awesome right there. And it persists throughout the entire film, how good it is. Outside of that, there is the moments of silence, which I really noticed in the theater, because the other moments are so big and loud. Then when you get those quieter moments, those silent moments, it's just fascinating to watch. So this is bar none a masterpiece of horror, a masterpiece of sci-fi, a masterpiece of film in general, and I highly recommend it. If you get a chance to go to the theater to check this out, take advantage of it. It is well worth the couple of hours, and it's just really cool seeing that little interview with Fede Alvarez and Ridley Scott at the beginning of the movie. I cannot wait for Romulus. That one is going to be awesome. Now there's a few kids standing out there staring at me as I'm talking to myself in my truck, so that's always fun, filming in public. But anyway, this was such a great experience, and I highly recommend you guys check this out. You don't need me to tell you that Alien is a 5-star classic, but I absolutely give this one 5 stars every time I watch it, and it just gets better on each viewing. All right, sorry for the awkward intrusion here, but I'm about to wrap up the video, but I got home and I wanted to check out the 4K release of Alien. Like I said, this was the last time I'd seen this, but it's been a while now, so I just didn't remember how this one looked. So I wanted to toss this in and just kind of compare it to what I was seeing in the theater, at least, from memory. And I said before I went to go see the movie that typically I enjoy the look of 4K on my home TV better than what I'm seeing in the theater, because the theater, a lot of times the dark scenes are just too dark. Like I lose in the blacks what, I feel like I would typically see a little bit more at home. And so, what's right I don't know, but I want to be able to see what's going on. So I typically prefer that look. Now, that said, I didn't watch this entire thing since I've been home, obviously, but I was checking some scenes, and I definitely liked what I saw in the theater more than I was seeing here. So obviously you have the whole, size thing, right? First off, I'm watching this on a 65-inch 4K TV at home versus the gigantic movie theater at the movies. And so just significantly different there, which obviously you can't replicate that at home. That's just not possible. But the other thing was the film grain. I don't see a lot of film grain in this 4K transfer. Now, mind you, when I watched this previously, it was years ago now, and I don't know that I cared about that type of thing back at that point. But watching it in the theater, the film grain was so evident, and it just made it feel like a movie from that era, which was awesome. Watching this 4K, it feels like it could have been something that was shot in digital more recently, which is not really what I want with my horror movies from the 70s and 80s, right? Like, I want it to have that natural feel to it. Film has grain, so you're going to see that. Now, like I said earlier, I think the Aliens 4K transfer looked amazing. I did see a thin layer of grain on that transfer, so I don't think it did a bad job of doing DNR where it was making everything a plastic. I didn't see that effect on it whatsoever. I did see some film grain. Here, with the few scenes I was seeing, it was noticeably turned down. The grain was noticeably turned down compared to what I saw in the theater. I was trying to do some research once I got home to figure out, what was going on with the print that I saw in the theater. Was it different or what? And the only thing I could see was that it was a 4K digital restoration. That's what we were watching. I would imagine it was probably the same as this, because this was just done, 5 years ago. This is the 40th anniversary release. So I can't imagine it was a new transfer, but maybe it is. I have no idea. You guys are smarter about that stuff. So let me know down below if you found out anything about this release. Is it a new 4K transfer? Whatever the case is, it looked better than what this 4K does. Now, mind you, the detail on this 4K is there. In one of the scenes where there's all the water coming down and it's a death scene, right? And we see a hat and it has the Nostromo logo on it. Very clear and very evident in the 4K transfer, where that I don't recall seeing that or picking that out in the film I was watching or in the movie I was watching in theaters. And so the detail is great on this 4K release, and I still think this looked good for what it is. I just wanted to chime in to say that in this instance, I absolutely preferred how it looked and sounded in the theater versus this 4K restoration. So it's an experience I'll probably not get again anytime soon. And so I just really wanted to share those thoughts. So I think even if you have the 4K, even if you are, sporting this 4K release, I think it's absolutely still worth going to see because it feels like a different transfer. There is so much more film grain what I saw in the theater versus what I'm seeing at home, and not a distracting amount. I have seen film grain where it is distracting. I always think of the Scream Factory Blu-ray release of Dawn of the Dead. To me, the amount of film grain on there was just distracting. It took away from what I was viewing, the picture I was viewing. In the theater when I saw Alien today, not at all. It looked amazing. It looked of its time. It felt like a 70s, 80s horror film, which is exactly how it should feel. So I'll go back to the outro, but I just wanted to cut in because I had to share my thoughts on the 4K versus the theatrical experience. The theatrical experience just cannot be duplicated thus far from what I saw. So highly recommend taking that trip. That's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for checking this video out. Hopefully it was somewhat enjoyable. Probably a short one compared to normal, but that's fine. So anyway, guys, hit that like button before you go. And thank you so much for watching this one. Before you go, I just want to encourage you all to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.